At Tampa Electric, we're proud to provide 99.9% service reliability in blue skies and gray. We're modernizing our grid to increase resilience for the families and businesses that depend on us every day. Year-round, we harden our system against extreme weather by burying power lines, maintaining line clearance, improving substations, and upgrading systems to restore power faster. Because the work we do now means reliable power for a bright future. Learn more at tampaelectric.com/reliability.
Barbecue, EV batteries, and disaster response. What do they all have in common? You guessed it. Florida's Chief Financial Officer, Jimmy Patronis. He's the guy who signs Governor Ron DeSantis' checks. We talk about disaster response, and you'll hear a lot from Jimmy Patronis. We also talk about, hey, guess who's running for governor? Is he or isn't he? Stick around and find out. Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis. You won't want to miss it.
I'd love to be governor one day. My wife wants me to do it. Spent my whole life being a public servant. I love fixing people's problems.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida.
Hey, everybody. We have a special treat for y'all. It is the king of hospitality, the state fire marshal, and one of my OGs, I like to call him that. It is the Chief Financial Officer of Florida, Jimmy Patronis. Welcome to Deeper Dive.
Thanks for having me, Dara. I appreciate it.
You've got a lot going on over there. And so tell us a little bit about what the office of the Chief Financial Officer does, because I'm old enough that I remember when they merged two cabinet offices to create that office. But what is the Chief Financial Officer?
So the easiest way I tell people is I'm the state's business manager. I keep the trains running on time. I pay all the bills. I balance the checkbook, sign every paycheck, pay for every invoice, sign every retirement check. I'm the insurance company for the state of Florida. So whenever there's a claim against the state or a building has damage, it comes to our risk management. I run workers' comp for the state. Also the state fire marshal. So we help work with the state fire code. But in addition, we do all arson investigations statewide. I regulate mining and blasting. I run the State Fire College in Ocala. I'm the trustee over all unclaimed property. So when you don't collect on your utility deposit, when you move from college to go back home, that money ends up coming to the state. You can go to our website, fltreasurehunt.gov, to claim it. We get your money back to you. I license over 1 million insurance agents and agencies statewide. I mean, it goes on and on and on. I've got 300 sworn law enforcement that do insurance fraud investigation. I do public assistance fraud investigations. So when people are gaming the system on public assistance, it's our folks that do and lead those investigations. And so and I tell people, they don't realize that the state of Florida has an elected CFO. So a lot of times I say, well, I'm the guy that signs Ron DeSantis' paycheck. and that kind of clicks. Or then, in order to sometimes kind of, acclimate them to where we're at, I said, well, look, at one end of the hallway is DeSantis' office, the other end of the hallway is mine. So this kind of tells you when you come to the Capitol where to look.
Well, thank you for telling us all that. You have a lot of responsibilities. You also have, I just want to give you guys a shout out. I'm trying to find it on my on my browser. I've got all these tabs open. I always like to have like 1,000 tabs open, but you have a great site, I think Transparency Florida, or Facts. It's called Facts. And you can look up all the contracts with the state, and I use that site quite a bit, so thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah. So let's dive right into it. I had recently we had a National Weather Service meteorologist on to talk about the kind of dire forecast that we just got for the upcoming hurricane season. you've gone through some serious storms over there. You're from Panama City, and of course, they got hit by Michael 5 years ago. Um, so, what are your thoughts going into? We talked about how to prepare and what people need to have in their kits and things like that. But what are your thoughts as we go into the hurricane season with all of the issues that have been surrounding Florida's insurance industry?
Sure. Well, I tell people all the time, it's not if, it's when we're hit by another hurricane. I get very frustrated with University of Colorado and NOAA and all these guys who turn up the volume on the storm activity threat. And they, especially with Colorado, they get to re-edit their predictions about 4 or 5 times during that hurricane cycle. So at the end of the year, they can look like geniuses. My problem with that is all that narrative that they put out in the public domain. All it does is it gives more cover for the reinsurance companies to raise rates. It allows the reinsurance brokerages in order. So I mean, and these entities, the reinsurance industry, they're not regulated. Okay, so it gets me frustrated. We're in a very tough insurance market in Florida, but it's not just Florida; it's nationwide. Florida's just recovering before anybody else is because we've taken some medicine, we've made some changes, and in some cases, we are putting our money where our mouth is. So I remind people, the state of Florida makes money off of hurricanes, and they don't think about that. I mean, you've been around long enough where you saw the type of windfall of money the state had after the 03, 04 hurricane
Yeah.
season. We had 4 storms hit the state within 2 years. The state sales tax revenue spiked.
Yeah, big
So, I
ones,
mean,
big
yeah,
storms. People were buying,
yeah,
repairing. People come from out of state to help with the restoration and recovery efforts. They buy stuff and they spend money.
yeah, and we get our commission on every single dollar.
Hmm.
So I mean, they're predicting that Hurricane Ian alone generated $1.4 billion in non-typical sales tax revenue for the state of Florida.
Wow.
So I feel like that's pain and suffering money in my book. That money, we have a moral obligation as trustees over the state's governance to push those dollars back out in a way to give relief to our citizens. So that's exactly what we've done with the sales tax exemption on windows and doors that it expires June 30th, 2024. This is exactly what we're doing with the My Safe Florida Home program, where we put north of $600 million into the public domain in order to, give $10,000 assistance to replace windows and doors. The average participant seen their premium drop by $1,000. Security First, that's a insurance company over in Volusia County, they actually ran the numbers. Their average policy holder who participated in the My Safe Florida Home program saw their premiums drop 39.6%. So again, the program works. This is what we're trying to do to turn this ship around. And the good thing about it is we've seen, as of this date, 10 carriers filed for no rate increase, 9 have filed for rate decreases. And this is just coming off of recent years where the carriers were asking for 20 and 30% rate increases. So we're going at least in the right direction. And I tell people it's not a sprint, it's a march. We got to work on this every single day.
So, a couple of follow ups there. The My Safe Florida Home, as you said, the legislature invested more money in that program this session. Is that true?
Correct.
Because there was a waiting list, right?
Mhm.
What do you need to do to be eligible for My Safe Florida Home, and how do listeners go about signing up for it?
So they want to visit mysafeflhome.com, mysafeflhome.com. Now, the waiting list right now, we've got about 58,000 applicants. The legislature put $200 million in to address those applicants. There's another $30 million for a pilot program that will try to help condos with the hardening that they need to go through. The legislature also put a priority on seniors and low income citizens. So what we did is we reached out to that waiting list, and if you're on that waiting list, you got an email from us regarding kind of means testing, age, all those type of questions, and then we applied those filters onto the waiting list and followed the legislature's instructions by prioritizing those individuals first. So once the governor signs the budget, best case scenario, that first week of July, we'll start cutting checks again. But again, the program works. The legislature really, truly wants to do more. I believe them that they want to do more. The legislators have been asking, how can we get, more resources in the My Safe Florida Home program? I said those decisions are through the legislative budgeting process, and I think now that they start to realize that they've got constituents that are getting some relief, they see the value of the program. And Lord knows I advocate for it because I see the state's bottom line, and I know that we're making money from the 1,200 plus people that are moving to our state every single day. I'd like to be able to give as much relief in the premium costs that people are facing as quick as we can, because in my opinion, the federal government is doing nothing about inflation.
So I haven't seen my insurance rates go down. Mine keep going up every year. Same with my friends. I imagine you're facing the same
Yep.
issue if you are not self-insured. So, I guess staying level is, not getting an increase, or I don't think we know yet what those ones who have, do we know what the ones who said they're going to bring rates down, do we know how much of a decrease they'll be offering?
Most of those rate decreases are anywhere from 3 to 10%.
Okay.
But again, I'll use myself as an example. Now, I didn't use the money from the My Safe Florida Home program, but I did what the My Safe Florida Home program prescribes. In about an 18-month period, my insurance rates went from $2,500, and then in November of 2023, it went to $9,500. May of
Wow.
23, I ordered new windows and doors for my house, impact resistant. By the end of the summer, they were installed, and then the rates went up in November, $9,500. December 28th of 2023, I had a windstorm mitigation inspection done. The state of Florida pays for that. January 2nd, got a check back from my carrier for $4,500.
Wow.
And that's my new rate moving forward. So again, if you make those improvements, the great thing about it is if you make those improvements and now you get them notated on your policy, Florida law dictates that those hardening enhancements have to be reflected in discounts on your premiums. One thing that OIR, that's the Office of Insurance Regulation, is doing right now is they've been given some rulemaking ability where they're going to now open up some of the discounts again. So perfect example is if you put a water monitor, say on your hot water heater, in case your hot water heater fails, then if you've got this real-time monitoring system, that could trigger a discount. So they're opening up discussion for leveraging new technology in order to drive down rates because of those items that cause claims. Let's leverage technology to get out before there is a claim.
I'm a little scared to get a windstorm mitigation inspection because what if they find I have all new windows and all new doors and everything, but my roof is not brand new, so I'm a little afraid that they're going to tell me I need to write a $20,000 check for a new roof.
No. So the windstorm mitigation. So what you can do is with the windstorm mitigation, it's like a deep dive inspection on your home. And you can do it a couple different ways. If you want to pay for it out of pocket yourself, the whole plan, the inspector will come in. They will actually take pictures over the seals on your windows, showing that they're impact resistant. If you have replaced all your windows and doors with impact resistant, that's significant savings you're leaving on the table. With your roof, how old is your house? Do you know when it was built?
In 1954.
Yeah, so you've probably got a roof. It's
I mean, the
probably a
roof is
very,
not that old.
yeah, but I'm wondering if you have hurricane clips.
I
So do you
think I
have
do. I think I do.
okay,
I'm not
so
sure.
if you've got hurricane clips on that roof,
Uh-huh.
I mean they'd have to retrofit. That's what the inspector's going to look for.
Okay.
That's the key. That's the key for the
See,
discount.
Divas, it's all
So
about me, me, me. I'm getting personal advice on how to reduce my insurance policy premiums here from our chief financial officer. It doesn't get much better than that.
I just want you to look. I hate writing checks to the insurance companies. Okay, so I would much rather try to save as much possible and
Me too.
leverage Florida law where it can help you.
Yeah, yeah. And I've talked about it. The people are sick of hearing me talk about it, about having a tree come through my roof here in Tallahassee. In fact, Governor Scott was one of the people who came to my neighborhood to
Yeah. So this was it Matthew or Hermine?
Hermine, whatever it was.
Whatever it was.
Yeah, it was bad. Actually, I lived in the same neighborhood that got hit really hard from those tornadoes recently. I don't live in that neighborhood anymore, but you know what it's like once you experience that. And you are on the ground for. I mean, I've seen you going everywhere where we have these storms and disasters. You show your heart, you're not afraid to show your emotion. I'm a crier, you're a crier. Let's just, there's no
Yeah.
shame in that. And I mean, what's it like for you when you're on the ground? I'm thinking this was not a storm, but you were there after Surfside too. What's it like being somebody whose job it is to be going and visiting all of these places where people are really suffering?
So, kind of my rule of thumb is whenever a disaster strikes, I want to be there. Um, Ideally, the same day or within a couple hours of whenever
Hmm.
the event took place. Surfside was the third largest building collapse in U.S. history, only behind Oklahoma City bombing and the World Trade Centers. 128 people lost their lives. Was it 128? Yes, I think it was 128 people lost their lives. I think it was June 21st, and I was already in South Florida with my son. I take him on the road with me, and I get a phone call from my chief of staff about 5 in the morning saying that we've got a building collapse in South Florida, and so I didn't really know to the extent of it. And then once we got down, they said it's a lot worse than I think I'm making it. And I was showing pictures to people this week about it, and you see this building that looks like a stack of concrete pancakes.
Mm.
Every floor is like a pancake, and and you've got these first responders. There's the same number of people responded to Surfside as responded to the entirety of Hurricane Michael, except they
Wow.
were working on a 1 acre site. And Surfside, I mean, and Hurricane Michael was 12 counties. And a lot of early retirements came from Surfside. These men and women working the pile. Um, their boots gave out, their gloves gave out, their equipment gave out. They were working 12-hour shifts, noon to midnight, midnight to noon. And they were picking up debris through a bucket brigade, glass, rocks. At the same time, they're picking up children's toys and photo albums. And it was just a different type of battle rhythm that those guys went through. We deployed mental health folks the first morning that they were there. We deployed clergy the first day they were there. It's like nothing I'd ever seen before in my life, and it'll stick with me forever. But saw a lot of heroes at work. I remember this one couple. They Greek family lost their son in the condo, and I remember Devin and I were standing in a park, and I'm about to go live with with Fox National, and the couple walked up right in the middle of the interview, and I took my headphones off and I gave them to Devin in the middle of the interview. I said, "You figure this out." And this couple they had just found their son,
Oh,
and and uh, and so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what their emotions were going to be, but they're walking up, and and all they could do is just hug and be grateful, and they just on and on and on because they had closure. Their
right.
son was found.
Yeah.
And their son didn't make it.
Right.
Um, and it was just I never saw that coming,
Yeah.
and that was just one snapshot of hundreds of stories we had from different families. One couple that they were dating, and the woman lived outside of the condo, and the boyfriend lived in the condo, and she talked him into staying the night with her at her home, and he did that night, and he survived.
Mm,
He would have died.
mm.
So I mean, yeah, I can. Every disaster's got stories like that. Ian was another bad one. About 130 lives were lost,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and that was the largest urban search and rescue response in the history of the United States. We had over 1,200 urban search and rescue first responders that deployed to that site. That's another part of our job is we coordinate all their needs and missions and everything that goes along with them after a disaster. I'm sorry, I'm totally getting off.
No, you're fine. It's a conversation. We're talking, and it's your experience, and you bring when people see you there in your role, and that's a comfort to know that the state is paying attention, that help is coming, and you personally are there. But you're a human being. I mean, and not but, and you're a human being, and you're affected by these disasters. As a reporter, CFO, I'm affected by these. I will never
Sure.
forget Katrina. I was there with the mayor, and they're learning about more bodies showing. He's on the phone getting information the morning of Biloxi, just driving around. Complete blocks are raised. There's you can't, we can talk about it and talk about it, and obviously you're emotional about it. I'm emotional about it. I covered many of those hurricanes you talked about from the storm season, those 2 years when I was working for the Palm Beach Post. And that was, Hurricane Ivan. It was
Dennis, Charlie, Wilma,
Dennis.
and Wilma nailed southeast Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, don't ever apologize for being real. I mean, that's what makes you who you are. We have a new email address, and we'd love to hear from you. To reach us and give us your input, tell us what you'd like to hear. Tell us what you thought about what you already heard. Tell us how fabulous we are. Join the Deeper Divas team. Send an email to podcasts@e.newsserviceflorida.com. That's podcasts@e.newsserviceflorida.com. And I promise I will read everyone. What have you learned that surprised you as you've navigated your way through these storms and these disasters?
Um, I've learned that you learn something from every storm. And with Hurricane Ian, what was like one of the crazy things from Hurricane Ian is every storm's different, and Ian was a flood event. So perfect example is what was different between a Hurricane Michael and a Hurricane Ian. Ian was a flood event. Michael was a wind event.
Mm-hmm.
And like in the case with Hurricane Ian, we've also had a bigger growth and proliferation and ownership of EVs. So now we weren't into this environment with Hurricane Ian, where all these EVs are catching fire. And when they catch on fire, they don't go out. I mean, so I've got photos on my phone where all the the flooded cars are out in the fields by Lake Okeechobee, and there's thousands and thousands of cars out there that are going to be put up for auction or rebuilt titles. But all the EVs are stored in a different area, and they're all parked, 25 feet apart from each other because of the volatility there. So, I mean, we learned that there's, those challenges. Lithium ion batteries aren't going anywhere. They're here to stay. But, they have a very twisted side effect that could, take place if they're compromised with salt water. And it's not a problem that Atlanta's going to have, or Kansas City's going to have, or Chicago. It's salt water where you got heavy mineral content, and you're bridging these batteries and you're shorting them out. So, we beat up on the EV manufacturers a little bit, and then we saw from Hurricane Idalia that the EV manufacturers got smart, and I give praise where praise is due. They did push notifications out to their owners, basically giving them instructions on what you should do. You're in a flood zone. You're in a storm zone. This is what you should do in order to minimize risk of your car having any problems. And so I mean, I kind of feel like we learn something every single day when a storm happens. And one of them is that EVs are volatile, and I appreciate the manufacturers leaning in after Idalia, after Ian, with further storms, alerting their owners of the safety issues.
Well, that's good that there was.
That is good.
Yeah,
That is
yeah. You were raised in the moving away from storms now a little bit. You were raised in the hospitality industry, and your family, the owners of the very famous Captain Anderson's. Can I tell the story about Captain Anderson's, or will you get mad at me?
No, when I call you Satan, is that what I called you?
The
What did I say?
the
I said
enemy,
something
the
evil.
enemy.
The enemy. I knew I said something evil.
We were there. We were
I
there.
love it. You never let me live that
I
down.
never
'Cause
do.
it always creates this guilt on me.
I never do. Well, I'm half Catholic and half Jewish, so guilt is my mantra, dude.
Well done.
We were there at the restaurant and with some friends of mine who were very close
It
to.
was during the oil spill.
It was during the oil spill when I was living over there and helping people get compensation from BP. Thank you very much. And we came to dinner, and I'll never forget, it was Valentine's Day. It was Valentine's Day, and I think it was jam-packed full of people, or it was some other day when you couldn't get a table, but because my friends knew you, so we walked in, and I had never met my friends' parents before. My first time meeting them, and you looked at me and you looked at them and you said to them, "What are you doing here? You're with the enemy. What are you doing with the enemy?" And you were joking, of course, and I never let you live it down. So thank you for letting me tell that little story. But my question was,
Sure.
how has being raised in the hospitality industry helped you in politics and public service, or what impact has it had on your public service and politics?
Sure. So I tell people all the time, I was in the restaurant business for 30 years, and I'm hardwired that way. I just can't simply change my programming. And so my attitudes in the restaurant business, if you'll take care of the customer, somebody else will. It's very competitive. People can go anywhere for their birthdays, their anniversaries, those special occasions. And so then my mentality has been, since I've been a public servant, and especially since I've been in this office, is I say it in front of my coworkers all the time, that if you don't take care of the customer, I'm going to find somebody else that will. And our folks here at Department of Financial Services, they're used to getting phone calls from me on Saturday nights, Sunday mornings, you name it. Whenever somebody calls me with a problem, I feel like it's an obligation we have to respond quickly, swiftly, and, help them solve their problem. And I tell people all the time, some days I'm a county commissioner, some days I'm a city councilman, some days I'm a CFO, some days I'm a congressman. People call me for everything. Now, I've been in this process now in public service over 18 years now. So you kind of build an identity that well, call Jimmy, he'll know who to call. And so
It's
I take a
true.
lot of pride. I love solving people's problems. It's fun. It's like taking care of the customer. Um, so I mean, it's the restaurant business did that to me, and I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for people wanting to go out and support my family's business. So again, I feel like I'm just paying it forward.
I've got two important food related questions, and I see our
Yeah.
time is running out. So let me slide them in real quickly.
All right.
Um, your favorite recipe?
My favorite. I love like if you're going to do a stuffed fish, I love to either have grouper or scamp stuffed with crab meat stuffing, and I like to blacken it. So I mean, just it's just all the way around. Boneless fillet of Gulf of Mexico, scamp or grouper, and then with a nice crab meat stuffing, with a blackening seasoning on it. That's
Are you
probably my
allowed to
favorite.
eat that and now? Is that part of your keto
Nope.
diet?
Nope. I can eat everything but the stuffing.
You
So,
can't. You can eat
um,
the stuffing as long as it doesn't have any breadcrumbs in it. It's just
yeah,
pure
whatever.
crab
Good luck
meat.
fixing that one.
Yeah, what holds it together. You also do a lot of barbecue while you're traveling, don't you?
Yeah. So, we are like on a mission to go try barbecue. Every town in the state of Florida has their own family-owned barbecue restaurant. So, I loved last week. We found a great place, and the sausage and the brisket that I had was amazing. But I love sauce. I love trying other people's sauces. This diet that I'm on doesn't help for that. So usually I just ask them for a little bit of dry rub, and I just add a little more dry
Uh
rub
huh.
to the barbecue. So, but yeah,
I
state of
love
Florida has
brisket.
some
I
great
love.
independent restaurants.
So,
Oh
what's your
yeah.
favorite? Is I like a brisket and I like a pulled pork. What's your favorite?
Yeah, so brisket, probably if I'm going to rank them, brisket, um, pork spare ribs. I like sausage. Um, pulled pork's always great, but again, it's going to be slathered in some sauce
Yeah,
or
you
sometimes
can't.
pulled
See, I
pork.
have diabetes and I can't eat any of those sauces, so I just have to do
Yeah, so
everything.
it's kind of similar what we're
Yeah.
both going through
Yep.
then. Yeah.
Absolutely. What's your favorite side?
So I love collard greens,
Ooh, yeah. I
and
just
then I
ate.
tell you
I
what.
just went up to Metcalf and had lunch with a friend of mine. If you're ever in Metcalf, there's a little. It's only open Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday for lunch, and you get what you get. She has two
Yeah.
choices, and it's a good old soul food Southern cooking. I had the best collards there a couple weeks ago.
So look there, if you Google it, kicking collard greens, there's a recipe out there where it's collard greens where you saute off the bacon, you get then you remove the bacon, you use apple cider vinegar, garlic, and crushed red pepper flakes. But if you'll Google kicking collard greens with
Kicking
those
collard
basic
greens. You
ingredients,
heard it here, guys. Kicking
God,
collard
they're so
greens.
good. Yeah, I mean, and it's got garlic, it's got apple cider vinegar. Use that a little bit of the deglazing from
Yeah.
the bacon.
Yeah.
Um, God, it's so good. Then you'll
Good.
chop up the bacon and add it back.
And no sugar. Anything with bacon. Hey, bacon makes everything better, my friend.
Are you
And
allowed to have bacon? I
I'm
thought you're
allowed to
not allowed to
have
have
bacon.
bacon.
Yes, I'm allowed to have bacon. Are you kidding me? I
All
like
right.
pulled pork. Yes, bacon. I
Yeah,
love bacon.
well,
You
that's
know
right.
where
You
I
did.
get my bacon? At Bradley's. Do you ever go to Bradley's?
Okay.
That's where I get my
I've only
bacon.
been there all the years I've been there. I went to Bradley's once.
Oh my
You know.
gosh, you got to take a ride out there and get some bacon. Listen, before we wrap up, I see
Yep.
the clock winding down here. I want to thank you again for joining us. I know I've been trying to get you on the show for a while. We'll have to get you back after the storm season. I think you wanted to talk a little bit about the state economy, or anything else. I'm turning it over to you. What do you want to go out on?
So I tell people that the state's in the best fiscal health we've ever been, and we've been paying down debt. I think a few good things have happened. So now, this is the third governor that I've worked, under, or worked with, or worked alongside with. So you look at the challenges that happened during the Christ administration. You see a a Rick Scott come in who saw the state of Florida as, a business that was struggling. He turns it around. And so then it's kind of interesting. Then you get a Ron DeSantis who people really didn't know a lot about. And I'm kind of the gray hair in the group. I'm the oldest guy left in this process, it seems like. And I really wasn't sure what to make of him. And there's been a lot of good that I've seen that I've come from. The biggest thing that I love paying down debt. Always been that way. And to see how he has been sensitive to the state's financial health, I think he really realized that he inherited a state of Florida that was in good fiscal health. And he has been, a good steward over staying on top of trying to leave it in a better financial place than how he found it. So, and he's done a few things also that I've been impressed with. His recovery with COVID, I think, was one of the best in the nation. But it's been fascinating. I'm a people person. I love watching people work. And then I look at the environment we're in right now on a national, and I think how they've weaponized the court system with President Trump it's heartbreaking. I feel like we're, taking a real chance of disenfranchising voters at a degree like they've never been before. And I don't like the road that we're going down right now. It's so caustic. And again, remember, I'm in the restaurant business. One thing I learned about the restaurant business is when people go out to eat, they're happy. Okay. You never see people go out to eat upset. And right now, we've just gotten in such a divisive state in our country. So, what I've been really disappointed with is the weaponization that we have seen of the court system. Um, I'm I'm disgusted with Congress and their inability to look out for what I think is important with what the U.S. citizen is going through right now with inflation. It seems like some of the priorities that this Congress has had hasn't focused on helping people with their financial struggles at home. Um, and at the same time, this is the same Congress that is still allowed insider trading to take place with members of Congress. I mean, there's one thing I feel like in Florida, I feel like we're doing things right. I can't control Washington, but we can stay the course here. I do like being held accountable, and I tell people all the time that if you don't hold your electeds accountable, you get the government that you deserve. And all these individuals put their name on the ballot, and if they don't like taking your phone calls, they don't like taking your emails, then you know what? Then they probably won't be in office very long. I think I'm the only member of the cabinet who actually has an email address that I respond to. I still truly believe being accessible. My social media platforms, it's 99% of the time it's me. Some of the stuff is from an office capacity post on there, but I just like I like being able to have the pulse of the public, and when they're frustrated, I want to hear about it. And they've had their fair share of frustrations with the state when it's come to insurance.
And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
I mean, it's my culture is interrupting. As I always joke, is like you don't get to talk if you don't interrupt in my family.
Yeah, sure.
But you mentioned that you're a people person, and that you've seen the arc of politics. You've been in politics for almost 2 decades, right? And we have seen, how angry people are, and how tribal it's become, and just people are so entrenched in their sides. It feels almost to me, as I've been watching this over these many years, like negotiation is a bad thing. Finding agreement, reaching across the aisle is a bad thing. You're disparaged for shaking hands with the other side. What are your thoughts on how we have, on our state of politics right now?
So I don't know if you remember when I was in the state legislature, I would run 3 years in a row, run a big omnibus permitting bill. And so when I would do this permitting bill, we would open up 70 different sections of law, and I would have these big meetings where I'd have, the League of Cities sitting across from the paper mills, or, the Sierra Club sitting across from one of the agriculture communities. So, and we would force these issues to be addressed. And for me, it was a hell of an education, because I'm hearing both sides of issues with experts when it comes to the environmental permitting of this state. And so when these bills, typically, you would have a bill that sometimes those on the Democratic side of the aisle would have heartburn with. But, you go and you work your bill, you educate your legislators. And, I was proud to say, I think two of those three bills that almost passed unanimously out of both chambers. You had a one-off there, member that voted against it. But this is what I enjoy, taking care of the customer. I enjoy working a problem. I enjoy finding solutions. And, right now it's combative, it's toxic. As you said, it's tribal. And then I think there's the sides of President Trump that I've seen personally that, the public doesn't see. I've got a dear friend who, works in Washington, D.C., who spent a lot of time with President Trump intimately. And he talks about the version of Trump that nobody sees. He says, every time Trump sees me, and this guy's in law enforcement, he says, every time Trump sees me, he would come shake my hand. He would come and thank me for what I'm doing. And he says, that softer side, that gracious side, that appreciative side of President Trump never really gets any exposure. And he may not want to expose it. He may want to show this tough, sharp elbow side of himself more than not. But I appreciate somebody who's a public servant complimenting, at that time, the leader of the free world. So, I mean, I do think that with President Trump, you had a guy who, in the private sector, he always worked with whomever he needed to work with in order to continue to make a living, to grow a business, to fix problems. And it's just definitely, I think his position he takes sometimes in a lighthearted sense gets twisted out of what reality was. I think he runs his mouth sometimes to have fun with a subject, and it gets taken out of context. So I mean, I hope the guy gets through all this in New York. I want to see him as our next president.
Do you think he will be?
Yeah, I mean, I do. And it's just, and look, I think Ron DeSantis is going to run in 2028, and I think he's going to be formidable, and I think he'll take his time getting there the right way, and I think he'll be a great governor, a great president when that next election cycle comes after the one this fall.
Are you going to run for governor?
I'd love to be governor one day. My wife wants me to do it. Spent my whole life being a public servant. I love fixing people's problems.
So can we say that if you first heard it here, folks, you're in it to win it?
Well, I tell people all the time, whenever I make my mind up to do something, nobody will outwork me. But look, there's a lot of time between now and then, and family's always first. And, right now I've got a wife and two boys that are my world. It's kind of crazy. I'm going to share something with you that it's a little hard for me to share because it's going to get me emotional. But my relationship with my family now, since I've had this job, is better now than it's ever been. And I didn't think it would be that way. I don't know if it's because how much she sacrifices for me to be all over the state, 5 days a week, or is it partly when I get home, I feel guilty that I've been gone. So my guard's very low and I just give in to whatever she wants to do. and some of it is going to be, God's hand in this, telling me this is where I'm supposed to be. And so, but man, I never thought I could love my wife more. I never thought I could be happier with my kids more. And this job has kind of created a whole new, appreciation about just family that I never thought I could feel any better about.
That's really
So it's
great
kind of,
to hear.
that's probably one of the reasons why I'm even having the conversation about what I'm going to do next. Just because it's been so special. It really has.
I mean, it's really great to hear you say that, because oftentimes, and I just had incoming Senate President Ben Albritton on the show, and I don't know if we got to it. It's a two-part show, so I don't know if we got to it in the first part yet, but he was talking about his when he first came to Tallahassee, when he was first elected, he brought his wife and kids up, and they did the homeschooling thing, and they became, the kids grew up in the process, sort of. I we have seen, being around a long time, both of us, we have seen, you talk about toxic, that Capitol building and the 1 mile around it can be a very toxic place, and it can do a lot of damage to relationships. So it's interesting to hear you say that you're, maybe being on the plaza level has a different impact.
No. So you're on to something, because, I've got handlers for my handlers. Okay. And so, yeah, it's a little harder to access, certain people in this process.
Mm-hmm.
And legislators are a little bit easier to access. But I tell people, when you come to Tallahassee, everybody laughs at your jokes. Everybody tells you, how much weight you've lost. They know where you went to school. They know your wife and kids' names. It's very intoxicating here. And maybe, I've moved past all of the interest in that, but, I know if I can get home by 2:00, a lot of times I'll start and end my trips and travels from Tallahassee. But my point is, if I can get in my own bed by 2:00 in the morning, then I'm going to drive how much it takes to get me home, because that time with the family's just important, and you can't replace it. But this process, Tallahassee, to your point about the toxicity, it goes through its cycles, and it goes through a cleansing process too. And I think that's what we need to have up in Washington, D.C. We need a cleansing process. We've got some good members of Congress, I think, that try hard, and then you've got others that it seems like it's an addiction of how much of an increasing to the challenges of being a productive part of our country can they accomplish. It's just it's disappointing. I feel like we're better than that.
We're better than that. Well, thank you, Chief Financial Officer Jimmy Patronis. Maybe it's time for me to stop ribbing you about the captain.
Stop it. You get to have that for as long as you. I was out of line, and you know what? Because I was out of line, you get to keep poking me about it, and that's good.
It's all in good fun, though. When 100%. I poke you about it, it's all in good fun. It's been a real pleasure having you on the show today. I hope we can do it again sometime soon.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And, this isn't said probably enough, but you look around this process, there's not many that I think can hold the electeds accountable. And, whether it's you or Rosnica or Fine Out or Peter, there's only a handful of guys up here, Gray, these that know their stuff, that do their homework, and can ask tough questions that are fair. And so just know that, you're a needed part of this process, and my door will always be open to you, and I appreciate you.
Thank you very much, sir. It's been a real treat.
Have a good one. See ya.
Bye-bye.
You're listening to A Deeper Dive with Dara, a podcast by the News Service of Florida.